part that I wrote for our band warm up at McM, which right now we know 5 notes. So this is a 5-note for the other instruments, a 5-note scale. And for percussion, because it's such a different bag than the wind instruments are and the tonal instruments are, I tried to base this one off of heights. So how high you're playing off of the head of the drum. So I'm going to try to demonstrate that as best I can. When we play this, the idea is that the first 2 measures are going to all be at 1 to 2 inches off of the drum. So you're playing very low to the drum, and it should create a fairly quiet sound. Now that's relative to snare drum, because 1 to 2 inches on the snare drum is not that quiet, to be honest. So, but we'll call it mezzo piano for now, for the purpose of this activity. And then as we move to the 3rd and 4th measures, we move up to 3 to 4 inches off the drum, which is about a mezzo forte, we'll call it. And then the 5th and 6th measures, when the band is up at the top of their scale, that's when we are at our loudest on the snare drum, and that we'll call forte, which is about 5 to 6 inches off the drum. Now keep in mind again that that's all relative to the drum you're playing, because you may be playing a particularly loud drum. On this drum, it's a pretty bright sounding drum. It's a little piccolo snare of mine, and so I also have something to dampen the head a bit. I don't have a little dampener inside the drum that pushes up on the head and kind of dampens it, but you definitely want to have it dampened down. I would recommend at home that you practice with a towel over your drum. I just didn't have one that was handy, so I grabbed a little pad of paper, scratch paper, and just dropped it on there. And you can tell the difference. You get this kind of ringy sound as opposed to the nice, tight, quiet sound. And plus, you know, you don't want to be bothering people. You want to get good at your instrument, and you need to practice to be able to do that. So if you have a practice pad, that's obviously preferred at home. And then, you know, try to at least occasionally find chances where you can actually play on an actual drum like this, so that you're getting the feel of an actual drum. Real feel pads are great because they have 2 different sides, but you should be playing on many different surfaces ultimately. You know, I even teach to kind of practice on your knees and non-bouncy surfaces, so that you're, you know, really working your wrists and learning the feel of the stick without getting that sort of, you know, natural bounce from a drum. This is an all wrist exercise, so nothing that you're doing here is going to involve bouncing or any sort of finger, you know, dribbling the stick or anything like that. It's just a very basic warm-up type thing. And you know, you're going to be doing basically, as the band changes notes, you're going to be changing sticks. So it starts with your right hand and switches to your left. It's 8th notes the whole time, so the rhythm is very simple. But we're dealing more with dynamics, while the rest of the band is dealing more with their fingerings and things and moving up and down scales. We're going to go ahead and start this off. There is a 2-measure click to introduce this, and then I'm going to give like a count off on the 2nd measure to get us started. In between each version of the scale, there will be a 1-measure rest. And so we kind of hit the first note, the release note, and then we stop for the rest of the measure, and then we start the next one. Just keep in mind that when you're practicing this, the idea is that you keep soft. This is a loud instrument. Snare drum doesn't need to be practiced loudly. You should get on a practice pad to do that, preferably like a real feel or something. But even those Remo pads with the gray ones with the white heads that look more like a snare drum, those are good because they feel maybe a little more like a snare drum. Yeah, so one other thing. Playing areas vary from drum to drum. On this particular drum, I'm just going to keep it in the center. Some people like to go sort of closer to the edge. Some people like to play way on the edge. I don't really like that as much. Sometimes I prefer here, sometimes I prefer in the center. I'm going to keep it in the center for this one. The other thing is I'm going to be playing traditional grip, so I'll have my left hand flipped over like this, mostly because I'm sitting down and it's just easier for me to do that when the drum is kind of higher up on me. But you know, most beginners I teach to do, if I had the drum set at a good level, then we'd be match grip doing this. The two parts of the grip that I always like to point out for the match grip is your front two fingers, which you can call a fulcrum, because eventually when we start bouncing the stick, it will pivot there, like a seesaw. The fulcrum is in the middle of a seesaw, right? Which is about 2/3 of the way from the tip. And then the last three fingers just wrap around. They don't really do anything other than help to control the stick. And again, this is mostly a wrist activity, so you know, you're knocking on a door, you don't knock like this, so you're not going to play a snare drum like this, because it would drive your parents insane, and anybody else that's around you, including your band director. So wrist only, control the volume. That's very important on this instrument, just like I teach my saxophone players to do that. The first thing they should do is work on controlling the volume of the instrument, because it's so easy to play loudly. So you work on playing softly a lot. Okay, I think that covers the basics. Let's go ahead and try this out. Get ready for our count off and play along with me if you like. Maybe watch it through once and then play along the next time. Sorry this is such a long video, but I'm a percussionist, so I kind of like to talk about percussion. Blah, blah. All right, here we go, guys. Hopefully you can hear the music in the background. 1, 2, ready, go. That's it. Practice makes permanent. Practice well, practice often. Okay, see you next time, next video.